Hello, this is Victoria Pendragon. Welcome to my alternate reality. And I've completely forgotten what I wanted to talk about. No, I haven't. I wanted to talk about the timeline. The timeline is the timeline. People think of time as a line, as a linear thing. Here's point A, here's point B, here's point C. It isn't. The timeline is more like a plane. It simply exists. Time just is. All time exists at any given moment. I think I've discussed this before. I'm not going to go into too great detail here, but time is not a line. Nevertheless, when we think of it in terms of our own lives, because we see progression, we tend to think of it as a line. But I'm here to tell you that you can have access to many of those points accidentally, really, simply because it's not a line. When I was about 13, I remember very distinctly lying in the small bedroom that was mine alone, and suddenly being overwhelmed by this knowing. Now I was 13 at that point, and I was studying metaphysics, but I had no real experience other than the experience that I was unaware of when I used to leave my body and go into the trees. I had no conscious experience of the multidimensional nature of life. And all of a sudden, this feeling came over me, and I knew with certainty I was older than I was then. I didn't know how old, but I was a mature woman. And I had a horrible disease. And there was no cure for it. And I knew it was dreadful. I was 44 when I got that disease. And it was dreadful. But I was 13 when I realized I was going to get it. Now, I let it go. I didn't carry that along with me, thinking off and on throughout my life, oh, I'm going to get a horrible disease. I didn't. It wasn't until well after I had it that I thought, oh, you know what? I remember that now. And there have been numerous other things. One of the more delightfully outstanding ones, because these things are not always troublesome, is that when I was, again, about that same age, 13, I was fascinated by two things. Boys wrestling, and that is in school wrestling, not like just for fun. So wrestlers, I guess you might say. And there was wrestling in my bloodline. One of my uncles was a professional wrestler. And professional wrestlers used to visit the house from time to time. So wrestlers were there in my consciousness, but I was fascinated by the boys my own age that were wrestlers, and also by the Greek statues of wrestlers. I just found their bodies to be so compelling. And then when I was a senior in high school, we were members of a swim club, and there was a man at the swim club, and he was, oh my heavens, probably 55 or so, 60. He was an older man, but obviously had kept his body in good shape, except for one thing. He had a perfectly round, hard tummy that stuck out in front of him, and he used to wear red Speedos, so you couldn't miss him. And I couldn't miss him, and I was obsessed with him for reasons which I now understand. But at the time I was like, okay, I don't know what this is about, but I cannot take my eyes off that man. And later, in my sophomore year of college, when I was being a mother's helper, there was on the beach a similar gentleman. Similarly built. Similar kind of bathing suit. There were lifeguards on the beach. There were young men my own age on the beach. Nope, only had eyes for that guy. Now I'm married to him. So there it is again. There was a faint image slipping through that timeline. And I saw it. These things happen. There are no coincidences. And I guess had I known about the dimensionality of time when I was younger, I might have paid more attention to those things than I did, but I'm not sure that matters really. It's just there. It's funny, I recently did an interview with a woman on web radio, and when I spoke about the timeline and things just existing, because she was saying something about something being on your path or not, and I said, well, if it happens, it's on your path. If you bump into something and it's unpleasant or it's pleasant, whatever, it's on your path. It can't not be. There you are. And she complained that if that, she had got a horrible disease, did that mean that was on her path and she had to deal with it? Yeah. That's why it's there. And she considered that to be that she was doomed. No, not at all. The things that are on our path are things, I don't know what, there are different views on it, but there are people who think that we create our path. There are, when we're not in body. There are people who think it just happens. Whatever, doesn't matter to me. It is. And the job is to deal with it, to learn something from it, whatever it is. Or to enjoy it, if it's a good thing. Just dive in there and don't have questions. Endings, beginnings, they're all part of a flow. And it's one flow of a life. And maybe it's more. Maybe all our lives flow into each other. I don't know. And I like that. I like the mystery of it. It seems to offer a lot of options. So, enjoy your life. Enjoy where you are. See what you can learn from where you are. See if you can accept where you are. Or if you may need to shift gears. Because it's not so much about fighting against something. That rarely works. Fighting against is a negative energy. But it may be a matter of simply shifting gears. That works, especially on a hill. I heard my timer. Thank you for coming. I'll talk to you again. Bye. If you'll have me.